Okay, you guys ready? All right, so what we're going to begin our briefing that we usually have around 11:30. Again, we usually pick a couple of deep dive topics, and so we're going to talk a little bit about, of course, what's happening in central New Mexico around Corona, and then our deep dive topic is going to be around open space. And so we're out here in front of some of our beautiful open space land, and we'll talk about some of the issues out here. So let's begin with some updates from central New Mexico. The Water Authority received several reports yesterday of fraudulent recorded phone calls telling customers that they had overdue utility bills. This is really important. We want to remind folks that this was actually not the Water Authority. This is definitely a fraud scam. And so, again, the utility does not do that. They have not been shutting off water during this time. They've suspended all shutoffs due to non-payment during the Corona-19 situation. So, want to remind folks, if you do get a call like that, it's not true. It's a scammer, so just hang up. Okay, also, we're continuing our special pop-up testing all around the city. And so again, we're trying to enable, and this is all through the good work at the State Department of Health. We're trying to have testing available in all parts of town. And so we want to make sure that, again, that moves around and it's available to everyone. So we announced South Valley yesterday at Casa Salud, which included bilingual folks. We saw 30 individuals get tested there. And there's going to be a special testing clinic scheduled for this Friday at the Islamic Center of New Mexico. That's out on Yale, I believe, in the southeast. And also June 6th, we're going to be doing testing at First Nations. That's up in the International District near the Southeast Heights Public Health Office on Zuni and San Pablo. And so, again, special testing Friday at the Islamic Center, June 6th at the corner of Zuni and San Pablo. Okay, these clinics also are, by the way, free of charge. Now, we also want to mention that the community has been stepping up in a lot of ways to provide meals for those who need it, and that continues to be the case. Meals to date, we've actually hit the 500,000 mark in terms of meals that we've served. So 533,000 meals have been served. And through Albuquerque Public Schools, it's about 300,000 of that. Our health and social service centers have served 3,000 roughly, and our child development center is about 1,000, and our community centers almost 10,000. Bernalillo County has served 50,000, and our senior affairs department coming in at about 130,000. So lots of great folks at the county and at our school district and at the city making sure that people get those meals. Now, as we transition into summer, we're going to be phasing in the summer meal program, which will continue this year. Stay tuned for more information on how that's going to play out. Lastly, of course, we want to remind folks that at least as of Tuesday, that restaurants began opening for patio dining, and our health inspectors are going to begin transitioning back to on-site health inspections. So as a reminder, a lot of folks were asking about that. Again, on-site restaurant inspections are in process and will be taking place from this point on. Okay, let's talk a little bit about our open space. Now, as we know, during Corona especially, our open space facilities have been used more than they ever have before. And it's such a blessing in Albuquerque that we have this great open space. It's really a gift of generations previous, and all administrations have fought for more open space. And we have it now wonderfully all over the city. So in general, we have ample open space on the west side. With respect to the petroglyph area and the volcanoes, also on the west side Bosque, which is what we're out in front of today. We also, of course, have the east side Bosque right across the river. And then we have the foothills, and then we even have places to spread out in Placitas and back around near Cedar Crest, and also in the Manzano Mountains, and also a great spot up kind of by Four Hills. So lots and lots of open space. These are being used heavily. People have also been really good about maintaining social distancing and dealing with, even parking far away, but also respecting areas that say no parking and so forth. So people have been very good. We also want to remind folks it's forest fire season, so our open space patrol, both the civilians and APD, are now out in force, and we'll be watching on that. But we want to remind everyone, as always, there's high fire danger in our open space areas, so we want everyone to be vigilant with respect to that. Now, as we think about this too, our administration, as has always been the case, we want to continue to be a national leader in open space, and we want to continue to acquire more open space. And this is the San Antonio Oxbow right here, and this is 29,000 acres of open space. Now, as you can see, a lot of it, depending on sort of your level of open space frugality, you can't necessarily hike in all of it because it's sort of Rio Grande swampland. And so we are trying to provide more areas near it so folks can access and enjoy this tremendous oxbow. Now, it's also home to many species that it's a very sensitive area with respect to the environment. And there's a strong desire for us to see that all the property here that you see, if we can, we want it preserved and we want it included in open space. Now, we understand if a private person owns this land, it's their choice, but now we have money to buy it from them. So as a reminder, in the last legislative session, we were allocated by the state of New Mexico some funds to buy open space land in this area. So now we have roughly $4 million to offer any private owner, whether it's for a little bit of their land or all their land or whatever they'll sell it at appraised value. So as a reminder, city acquisitions always have to be done with an appraisal. So we're in business. We've got funding to buy open space, and we'd love to do it around this Oxbow. So we want to thank especially our representatives, the House of Representatives who represent this area, who were able to get this funding, especially Senator Jacob Candelaria. He is a working lawyer and had a client issue, otherwise he would be here with us. He is available for your questions after, if you have questions for Senator Candelaria, who was really helped lead up this $4.6 million effort to purchase any of the property that is owned in this area. So with that, we thank the senator and the legislators who also put in. And what I'm going to do next is actually hand it over to the city councilor for this area, Councilor Lansena. Come on up, Councilor.
And thank you, Mayor. And we are seeing the beauty here as we're walking through. And really, our residents in this district know the beauty and the value of this area and this space. You've met my dog Sterling at the last press conference that we did at the Petroglyph National Monument, and we walk our dogs, we practice social distancing while exercising, and many of our residents within Albuquerque are realizing the real value of our open space, and not just exercising and keeping 6 feet of distance between one another, but really enjoying what this district has to offer. And really, this is the epitome of the beauty of what District 1 has to offer our city. And I know that our residents and the neighbors in this area know that value, want to protect that. So I do want to thank our legislators, all of the West Side legislators, bipartisan on both aisles, committing their funding, their outlay funds to this property because they know the value of this area. They know the beauty, and they know that the residents support it as well, and as do I. So I wish to tell our residents to please do check out the spaces, the open space, while respecting the rules. But of course, you know, we want to protect these areas, this beauty, and keep our city beautiful. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Councilor. Well, and it's hard to deny the beauty. You know, I was looking, the cameras are aimed the other way, but right on this side of everyone watching is, of course, St. Pius High School. And so, you know, used to eat lunch looking over this exact setting. And so we want to preserve as much of it as we can so that future generations can enjoy it as well. Now, we could talk about other high school stories later, but anyway, so let's hear from our open space. We have two folks from our open space leadership here. First is the Director of Parks and Rec, Dave Simon, and he's going to speak a little bit about the specifics about some properties in this area, and then also our Superintendent of Open Spaces here as well. So we'll just go one by one, but let's start with our Director of Parks and Rec, which oversees open space, Dave Simon.
Good morning, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, Councilor, for being here on this beautiful ground that's held in trust for the future of our city and its residents. You know, open space is, as the mayor said, a tremendous gift to present and future generations. Oftentimes, we don't really understand the full benefits of those gifts until we really need them. And this has been a time when our city and Burqueños have really needed parks and open space. And through the guidance and foresight of our predecessors and prior city leaders, citizen leaders, and elected leaders, we have had this reservoir of open space to fall back upon, to recreate and to recreate ourselves in a challenging time. The tough decisions are the ones we make now for the long-term benefits of our city. And acquiring more open space property here at the Oxbow to better protect the Oxbow and to facilitate some more public accessibility to open lands is one of those difficult decisions, but one that this mayor and our legislators have stood firm and committed to so that present and future generations will benefit from these investments. With this tremendous support of the state legislature, as the mayor said, the city has been allocated $4.6 million to purchase lands here, particularly the property known as the pool property just north of us here and west of the current open space boundary. Acquisition and protection of the pool property would further protect the very sensitive Oxbow lands and again make more open space available to West Siders. This land is currently privately owned, and we recognize and appreciate the work of the developer and the builder that they have done to propose a residential community on this land. Now, all of us who love Albuquerque want to live in the most beautiful spots and be closest to the prettiest places. And that's a natural instinct for us to have. I think in this case, the city believes that this land is better off being shared by all of us and not become another residential development. In March of 2019, the Environmental Planning Commission, or EPC, approved a plan for a 76-home community on the 23 acres of the pool property. This plan eventually reached the City Council, which rejected it in that present form and ordered it to be revised and reviewed again. In February 2020, the EPC then approved a revised plan for 69 homes on this 23 acres of property. Unfortunately, from the open space perspective, the second plan approved by the EPC is in many ways less desirable than the first, and it will result in development extending closer to the sensitive fringe of the Oxbow than the first plan. This has reinforced the city's commitment to work in a fair and open way with the property owners and developers to discuss the acquisition and protection of the pool property. The city stands ready to engage in fair discussions about the value and process of acquiring the property, which could be done by a combination of trade, donation, and/or acquisition using the $4.6 million from the state legislature. Now, this is a very significant sum for the legislature to appropriate for what would be a landmark, generational investment in open space, and the city is committed to working with the owner-developer to reach a fair and equitable solution. We have reached out to the developers and owners, and we are ready to talk. With that, I'll introduce Colleen Langen McRoberts, who is our open space superintendent.
Thank you, Mayor Keller and Director Simon. Good afternoon, everybody. You know, the City Open Space Division, we manage more than 30,000 or nearly 30,000 acres and 4,500 acres in and around the Bosque area, including where we're standing here at the San Antonio Oxbow. If you're not familiar with this site, we're off of Coors and Namaste, and I encourage people to come out and enjoy the beautiful views. When you're out here, you can enjoy this nature preserve that is abundant with lots of different types of animals, from migratory and residential birds to reptiles, muskrats and beavers, all sorts of amazing animals that you can see here. And we want to do everything that we can to continue to protect this area. It actually has an amazing legacy. Many of the marshes and wetlands had been drained along the Middle Rio Grande area, and a group of citizens, concerned citizens and activists and city staff and officials came together to ensure in the early 70s that this area would not be drained of its water and that it could continue to support a thriving ecosystem here. And they were successful. In 1976, the city officials and MRGCD were able to strike a deal protecting this area, and eventually it would be purchased by the city open space and become a part of our open space system in 1999. And so we want to continue to do what we can to protect this area. It's just as important as it was in 1976, and we all have an obligation to be continued stewards of this land. And so whenever there is development along any of our open space, but especially in sensitive areas like this, we want to be very thoughtful and consider the treatments that are being considered for those developments adjacent to open space and make sure that, you know, it's not going to have a negative impact. More ideally, we would love to be able to purchase additional open space next to the Oxbow so that we can have it as an additional amenity to our residents, but then also ensure that we're protecting the area, enhancing that protection, and being able to maintain its natural and cultural values. And so we're really excited to have an opportunity to have dedicated funding to be able to enter into these conversations. And just as people were hopeful back in 1976 that they could protect this area, we are hopeful today that we might be able to see the added protection of this really, really important place. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Colleen, could you tell us where the boundaries are now?
Yeah, the property is around 40 acres. It includes, of course, the site that we are at, but as well as this, if you want to bring your cameras here after we're done speaking, I highly recommend that you pan over what is obviously a marshland area, which is the Oxbow. And it's fed by water coming out from the Corrales drain that is a consistent source of water. And so back in the 70s is when that water was being considered to be cut off and then diverted to the Atrisco drain. But again, we've been able to maintain that water here. And just looking down, I can see some red-winged blackbirds and a lot of animals just from this vantage point.
Okay, thank you so much, Colleen. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we'll take a few questions if folks have them, and then I know, I believe there's going to be a press conference at the state level today outlining various things in terms of corona phases and whatnot. And so, as a heads up, we'll be back tomorrow at 11:30 to give the city's update based on whatever happens today at the state level. So stay tuned for that tomorrow. Okay, any questions coming in?
Yeah, Mayor, we have a few questions here. One from Maida Aguilar at Univision. Will camping be allowed soon? It's a question that they've seen a lot from their viewers.
Sure, it's a good question about will camping be allowed soon. And I know this is confusing to folks because there are different jurisdictions, but the camping rules and regulations depend on which campsite you're talking about. The ones we control are an open space, and I believe there's no camping on open space, right?
That's correct. We do have a couple of reservation areas,
Oh,
including
why don't you go ahead?
The City of Open Space does not actually have any designated camping areas, but we do have reservation areas that includes Carolino Canyon that is on South 14. It's really a beautiful property that includes a couple of picnic areas and shade structures and even volleyball nets. It's a wonderful place to have an event. It's not open to the general public with the exception of through a reservation. Right now we're not currently taking reservations there or at Elena Gallegos, but in a phased plan and continuing to be dependent upon the mayor and the governor's mandates, we do hope to in June start opening those places up for reservations with the appropriate group sizes.
So just to be clear on that, though, there's no camping allowed at Albuquerque open space properties, and that's always the case. It's not just during Corona. But you can reserve the facilities if they're available.
Thank you. We have one more from Fair Community News. You had mentioned, or the city had mentioned before, that you're ready to talk. Has the developer responded at all? What is your hope on this?
Yeah, the question is, we're ready to talk. I think also we have money, so we're funded. And actually, that's something I probably would let Dave Simon speak to that. He's been more involved in this.
Well, thank you, Mayor. The actions of the state legislature to appropriate this very large sum of money are recent. The EPC approval of the second version of the development plan is relatively recent. So, but lately we have reached out to the developers to begin this conversation, and we are just ready for that return call, eager to engage in a fair conversation that can result in an equitable solution for both parties. So we reached out, and we're looking forward to having the phone ring soon.
Others?
Yeah, thank you. We have one from Jessica Dyer at the Albuquerque Journal. Is there any concern that the $4.6 million allocation for this property will be lost during the special session?
Yeah, the question is about, the capital funding and what might happen in the special session. And I think for us, we're optimistic because this is severance tax bond funds. So in other words, there is another chunk from 2019 that was general fund. I think it just makes financial sense. That's going to be looked at. I'm sure everything's going to be looked at, but this is one so new and also so specific and usable. This is truly shovel-ready money, meaning we can just use it to buy property. So we're optimistic on that front. And again, because this money is bond money as opposed to actually general fund money.
One more from Jessica Dyer at the Albuquerque Journal. Have the property owners or the developers given you any indication that they're willing to sell or trade the land?
Question is, indications from the owners, and I think Dave spoke to that, so I would just reference his comments. We're waiting for the phone to ring.
Yeah, we look forward to hearing from them.
Sounds good. That's all the questions that we have.
Okay, all right, with that, we'll see you tomorrow again for an update based on especially what happens this afternoon. See you at 11:30. Thanks.